Okay, topic number one, I'm going to talk about the ceiling for growth related to introducing a brand in media. So a lot of our clients are hitting a ceiling in terms of their ability to grow revenues organically. And that ceiling is usually associated with a stage of growth. They've figured out their product market fit, they've got a good client base, and they can work with traditional sales channels, but they haven't really leveraged the brand. And so in the life stage of a business, often a private equity owned business or a professional services business, you'll see that revenues tend to tap out with conventional sales tactics and events. And a CMO and a CEO will start to introduce the notion of a brand. It's a foreign concept. A brand has financial value, but a lot of organizations don't really understand the impact and importance of a brand in scaling their growth. So a brand creates value in 9 specific ways. And we're talking shareholder value here. People choose more, refer more, buy more, pay more, buy faster. Those are the impacts of brands. And brands are largely developed by media. So the real problem people face is it's difficult to get a large organization of people and salespeople to scale, particularly in competitive markets where you're a challenger brand, an upstart brand, or you're growing your way into a certain market segment without that brand. You need a brand to get SEO. You need a brand to get on RFPs. You need a brand to get ratings. You need a brand to take the risk out of choosing. And so those are all the things that media really does to help a business grow. And the challenge our clients face is communicating to the broader leadership team, say the partners of a professional services firm or a law firm, or the business unit heads of a large corporation, as to why you need an umbrella brand. And that's the challenge that we solve for our clients. And the way we do that is we build our media plans on a financial business case for the CFO tied to future cash flow and firm value. For example, people will pay more for a brand. A premium consulting brand, IBM, McKinsey, can charge 2 to 3 times more for the same service as a small niche consultancy or agency can. And that shows up in margins, future cash flow, and so having a brand that has no risk, that is familiar, that is easy to say yes to, that is easy to put an RFP on, that is easy to take a meeting with is important. And media does that. Choice and preference. B2B business is largely driven by referrals, RFPs, or formalized selection processes. How do those lists get pulled together? People do their homework, but they'll generally go ask other people, look at ratings, look at search rankings. Those are all driven by brands and reputation. Even analysts like Gartner or the Wall Street Journal will tend to bias towards the name brands. No one's going to argue with the top 10 list that has all the familiar brands on it. It's when there's a new name on there that people start to question, who are these people? How can they hang with the big boys? So these are an aspect that is material. That we're talking about the brand impacting over 90% of the revenue at these firms because formalized selection processes require lists, require consideration, require formal RFPs. And if you don't have a brand that everyone on that team sort of agrees upon, you may not be on that list, or you may be cannon fodder on that list. Also, in terms of media and marketing effectiveness, brands drive choice and conversion. So my ads get looked at more. People do form fills more. People will click on websites. People will take actions. People will meet with salespeople with a brand that they feel like has value and that they can offer them something. So all of these intangibles, the brand is an intangible financial asset. And the key to creating a highly profitable and successful media plan around branding is to really zero in on those economics and understand, are we going to drive price premium? Are we going to drive consideration? Are we going to build preference with our distribution partners? Are we going to drive cross-sell and awareness across our buying units? Are we going to take the risk out of choosing us? Those are all the things that have a material dollars and cents impact. And tying them to media is the trick. And that's really what we do at Green Thread. That's what we do for our clients. And in my mind, that's how we create the most value with media. Because brand in the average B2B firm is 15 to 20% of the value of the business. And proving and measuring that impact to the CFO, to the board, to the CFO is the trick. And we have the math of growth. And when you have the math of growth, you have the right KPIs, and your media is doing the things that has impact. And so when it comes to attribution and the impact of media on the business, it's all about the math of growth in the brand. The next thing I want to talk about is going to be the new rules of B2B marketing. One of the dynamics that is happening in a modern business-to-business commercial model is this shift of resources from the front of the funnel, branding activity, through what is called demand or performance marketing, to loyalty and retention marketing, to expansion marketing. And the math of growth dictates this. So brand advertising has value. The brand is worth 15 to 20% of the firm. It drives incredible value through choice, preference, price premiums, referrals. However, most CFOs at organizations have a difficult time justifying media investment against such intangibles. The inexorable force of gravity from investors and boards is to move to demand. Why? Well, one thing, do I really need to advertise to everybody when 80% of my revenues, clients, and profits are coming from really 20% of the customers, geographies, and segments? Further, even if I've tightened the bullseye on my addressable market, the actionable market is much smaller. The notion of a 95-5 rule has emerged in B2B marketing, which is really putting hard numbers to the intersection between brand advertising and performance marketing. The implication is, for every 100 people, 95 of them are not in market for your service today. Why not advertise to the 5% of people who are actively going to make a buying decision in the next 6 to 24 months? And so there's enormous pressure to shrink the focus of the media budget 10 to 20-fold by zeroing in on those 5% of people who are actually going to buy, engage, and become leads for your sales force. And how do we know this? There are so many more signals. There is so much more data on our websites in the dark funnel, which can operationally and practically tell us who is ready to buy and target our media onto those people. Further, as you go deeper into the funnel, the rule of 40, we're talking about these new rules of B2B marketing. SaaS firms, subscription firms, large conglomerates who can cross-sell 40 different types of products to one customer. Retention and expansion is really important. So much of the focus of advertising, implied or real, has been on acquiring new clients, when in reality, in a B2B world, the rule of 40, meaning that I need to retain profitable clients over the lifetime, is really driving so many businesses in the tech, services, and SaaS sector. And that means some of my advertising needs to be allocated to keeping existing customers happy, making them feel good about extending their contracts, not canceling their contracts, increasing usage, or expanding to other business units. Take it to expansion. It's 14 to 15 times easier to sell to an existing customer than a prospect. That may sound lazy, but most SaaS and B2B firms have more than one product to sell. And the real lever of their growth comes from expansion across business units, across products, across people in the buying committee. And allocating media and marketing effort to expansion, cross-sell, new personas, establishing referrals is critical. So all of this means that the force of media in B2B is moving from brand deeper into the funnel to the 5% of people who are actively in market, to the fraction of people who are customers who can make our economics and Rule of 40 work by just pressing the retention button and renewing, and to cross-sell, where so many organizations have more than one product to sell, and the easiest path to growth is by selling to new people, new business units, and new buyer persona. The next thing I want to talk about is going to be shrinking the customer bullseye. So one of the conversations we have with all of our clients in B2B is the notion of using data to shrink the customer bullseye. By this, we mean using data to define audiences that are much more targeted to the people that we want to sell to, we can sell to in terms of coverage, and who are ready to buy. And the economics there and the leverage there is 10 to 20x. If you think about a market, the North American market, traditional conventional wisdom in B2C advertising is to start with 320 million people and start to use deterministic data to winnow that down to individuals who fit your demographic, firmographic, psychographic, behavioral profile. And that is rational, but the number turns out to be really, really big. If you look at the average B2B firm we work with in the services, technology, industrial sector, they have salespeople and partners deployed in specific states and markets. They are focused on thousands of people operating in hundreds of accounts with thousands of influencers making recommendations. They are dealing with 5 to 10 unique buyer persona out of hundreds or thousands of people inside accounts. And so the ability to razor focus and shrink that bullseye is amazing. As I mentioned, conventional media planning wisdom, particularly driven by B2C behavior, starts with the whole 300 plus million people in the United States and uses deterministic variables, psychographics, demographics, zip codes, to zero in on a smaller number. What works better in B2B is a probabilistic approach, where I start with the obvious. In what states do I have sales channels and distribution coverage? In what accounts can I really make money? Of the thousands of people in those accounts, who are the 5 or 6 roles or buyer personas? A CFO, a chief information security person, a head of HR, a head of sales enablement, who really matter to my buyers. And of those, who is actively in market and ready to consider and buy my product? Often that's only 4 to 5% of the addressable market. And so we can use data, first-party data, third-party data, CRM data, account data, to dramatically shrink that bullseye. And the notion that I need clean lists with personally identifiable information is not really a constraint. If you just shrunk it by the top 100 accounts that had account management coverage and distribution coverage, and identified the 5 persona by job function, not even name, within those accounts, and then you overlaid who has visited your website and exists within your first party data, and who is kicking the tires on competitive solutions and terms in the broader internet, you can shrink the bullseye 20x and not miss any opportunity in the near term. And that data is available to every organization, and that shrinking of the bullseye affords marketing and media leaders a lot more flexibility into where they allocate resources and how deep they can go in terms of engaging and activating those resources. So you could expand your reach 20-fold by just expanding to more markets, or you can concentrate media on driving those 5% of people deeper into the revenue cycle for better quality leads, better attribution, and more impact. And so shrinking the bullseye can dramatically improve the impact of media. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the 4 C's of shrinking the client bullseye. One of the conversations we have with our clients in terms of improving the business impact of their media is to use data that is readily available within their organization or easy to acquire to shrink the audience bullseye. And while this sounds like common sense in a data-driven digital world, it's amazing how CMOs and media leaders in B2B firms do not take advantage of their ability to really use data to find audiences that are much more targeted and make their dollars work so much harder. When we talk about data-driven audience definition, we like to talk about the 4 C's of data. And broadly speaking, this is company data. What companies are we targeting? What companies have key account coverage? What companies are in our CRM pipeline? What companies already buy from us? Pretty simple. And when you look at it, if there are 100 million companies of any scale in the United States, I'd argue that you only care about a couple thousand of them if you shrink the bullseye. The other is customers. Who is our lookalike customer? What is their job function? Are they in my CRM system? Have they visited my website? Do I have a relationship with them? Do I have their phone number? You could just go to the average marketing automation system and CRM system and get answers to all these questions. If you find an individual within your CRM system that is identifiable, or if you bought a list by job function, that shrinks the bullseye dramatically. Why aren't we using this data to target our audiences more accurately? Why aren't we using this data to send different messages when they land on our own websites or apps? And so just looking at who the customer is, if it's something as broad as a job description, if it's something as narrow as I have a profile of them in my CRM system, that can really shrink the bullseye. And it's first-party data that I own. Sales organizations spend an enormous amount of time talking and engaging these people. Why should my media not work in concert with them? The third is contextual data. The third C is contextual data. And what we mean by contextual data is, where are they in the buying cycle? What signals do they have that suggest they would be receptive to our messages? Have they visited our website? Are they searching for terms that are very relevant to my business? Are they downloading Gartner reports for my product but not telling me? And so this contextual data, if you layer it into your audiences, can really shrink the bullseye to help me zero in on people who are actively interested in buying the types of products and services I have. This data exists, whether it's on Bombora, the average ABM platform, acquired from a different source, or even through your content marketing. You can provide contextual data that can help build an audience of people who are ready to buy. The fourth C, the fourth source of data that we use to really shrink the audience bullseye, is what we call channel data. The average organization in B2B spends 2 to 3 times more money on digital channels that they own than they do on media channels that they buy. The beauty of this owned digital channel infrastructure is that it throws off first-party data. It gives us information about who is buying from us, who is engaging us, where they are in the customer lifecycle, how interested they are. And so whether that's email or a website or a mobile app or a landing page, incorporating this channel data into modeling and defining our media audiences is a powerful opportunity. And it sounds like common sense, but so many organizations don't incorporate it because that data is owned by somebody who is not working with the media agency. That data may exist in a marketing automation platform, and it's relatively difficult to put it into the customer data platform or server that is serving up the ads. And so just making the effort to take information you generate from your channels of prospects and customers who are engaging with you and incorporating that into your media audience planning is a huge opportunity. So to recap, we find that using the 4 C's, company data, the companies that you're targeting with humans, account managers, effort, customer data, the buyer personas, the job functions, the roles, and the people inside those companies who you want to advertise to. Contextual data, information that says these people are interested in buying a solution or product like yours now and engaging with search terms and information sources that you can use in advertising. And finally, channel data. Are you using the intelligence that you're generating with your digital channel infrastructure to inform and refine your target media audiences? The next thing I'll talk about is account-based marketing. So in B2B media, most organizations target enterprises and businesses, not individuals like they do in consumers. And when we work with our clients, shifting to this unit of analysis is often very antithetical in media. Traditional agencies like to deploy media against individuals when the unit analysis should be accounts. That is how revenue-generating programs, sales forces, resources, and channels are planned, funded, and allocated. Why should media operate on a different unit of analysis? So whether you call it account-based marketing, ABM, ABX, or account-based selling, pods, whatever the name is, allocating media to the accounts that fit your ideal profile with the greatest potential for cross-sell and retention and upsell makes a ton of sense, particularly in a world where much of our revenue growth is going to come from retention and expansion. Developing an ABM program requires a different type of thinking in terms of how we plan and allocate our media. One big difference with targeting accounts with media is the difference between deterministic planning and audience definition and probabilistic audience definition. In a very sophisticated digital age, the notion of guessing who is likely to buy sounds almost trite or simplistic, but it's actually a powerful way to get your media working harder. You don't need first-party data, cookies to target your media in B2B. You've just got to talk to your sales organization and your planning organization and identify the hundreds of accounts and thousands, not millions of people within those accounts and persona to zero in your media in all of the people who are making buying decisions, whether that is a user, an influencer, or an economic buyer about your product. And so the power of targeting media just by the companies and roles within those companies is absolutely amazing. And taking a probabilistic approach is more practical and actionable. The second is the channels. Most media agencies bias towards paid media. And paid media is powerful, but in a B2B world, organizations are spending 2 to 3 times as much on earned, owned, and shared media. All forms of those media should be working in concert against the same objective and the same audiences. And in most cases, they're not. Why? Our B2B media study taught us that the average CMO or media leader does not have full or direct control over paid, earned, owned, and shared, meaning sponsorship media. Often, those are run by different agencies, different groups, different departments, and that lack of coordination is costing organizations a lot of money. And so in our world, when we work with clients, we think of media holistically in terms of paid, owned, earned, and the content and PR that goes with that, and sponsorships, partners, creative partners, co-partnerships. All of those have media value. And to the degree you can get them working together, you can have a huge impact. Another big difference when it comes to B2B firms targeting accounts with their media, what is often called ABM, is the systems that they use to define those audiences. A lot of times people define an audience on a spreadsheet, in an analytical platform, in a data mart, or in a customer data platform. And those are all valid ways to do it. But an information source that is often critical to targeting and selling to accounts and ignored is the CRM system, the system of record for sales. If a customer data platform is a system of record for media and CRM is a system of record for sales, why shouldn't we combine those to make sure that all of our growth resources, not just sales effort and mail programs, but also media, are targeting the same audiences? Often using CRM data about accounts, about opportunities in the pipeline, about people that we're calling up and talking to, about customers who can buy and use more. Why isn't that information being used to inform media allocation and targeting? And the answer is it should be. It is hard but not difficult to drive and model audiences and update audiences based on data within the CRM because of advanced ABM platforms and their ability to interface, augment, and support media deployment, not just across paid media, but also earned media and even sales actions. So using CRM data to target and find audiences is a big difference in a practical way that B2B organizations can maximize the impact of their media when they're advertising, marketing, and selling to accounts. The next thing I'll talk about briefly is product market fit. So at Green Thread, we work with clients who are ready to scale. A lot of the clients we work with are private equity funded organizations who have spent years doing something very difficult, defining a product market fit. And that is very difficult. You can have a great service, it can be configured in a meaningful way, but until you can align it airtight with an identifiable buyer and value proposition to the degree that they will convert, buy, and buy more, you really shouldn't be spending too much money in media. But once that fit is determined and you understand that you have a conversion function, a response function, an identifiable buyer segment, and audience profile, it's time for media to come in and really scale. And often organizations have to pivot their energy from product development, market research, and defining a go-to-market model and building muscle and expertise in media to scale that go-to-market model. And that's where Green Thread adds a lot of value. We understand how that value proposition works. We understand the triggers, the personas, the events, and the audiences that we need to target, and we are expert in using media to take that product market fit and scale the business. That means defining very granular audiences. That means understanding very discrete audience profiles. That means building content and messages that are aligned with those profiles. That means targeting and tagging that content for stages of the revenue cycle that go beyond just brand awareness, but all the way through value selling and even renewals. And so doing that work allows a business poised for growth to leverage media once they've achieved product market fit. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the new economies of scale in B2B media. One of the big ways we create value for our clients is by helping them connect the dots across their media channels, programs, and assets to scale and drive bigger business impact. We call this a connected media strategy. A connected media strategy is a huge opportunity for any B2B business, not because they're not intelligent or they understand media, but largely because they're disconnected. By that I mean the managers who run the different forms of media, paid media, communications, social media, sponsorships, often don't report to the same individual or have the same incentives. The people who own the data that can target that media against accounts, personas, and individuals and geographies often don't report to or support the marketing teams and agency teams that are responsible for developing those media programs. The people who generate the content, the value proposition, the messaging, the creative, the sales enablement content, the thought leadership content in an organization often are disconnected from the people deploying those messages using media across channels. And so the ability to connect these dimensions can improve the business impact in terms of revenues, profits, and future cash flow by over 50% with the same resources and capabilities. When we build a connected media strategy for our clients, we examine 46 discrete best practices that the best B2B marketers are using to improve the impact and effectiveness of their media. Often, an organization will have an opportunity to use 10 of those best practices, which can improve the impact of their media by 15%. That may not sound like a lot, but if you could get 15% more impact for the same investment without really investing any more, why not? And so we go in and do an audit that is thorough, that turns over every practical stone, examines every practical way an organization can get more business impact from their media. And we make sure that we bake that into our programs. And if it's achievable, we help our clients to execute that. We're not talking about rocket science here. We're talking about writing content for the persona that you advertise for. We're talking about taking data from CRM to create a better picture of the accounts and audiences that I want to be advertising to. We're talking about making sure that the intelligence and signals that we generate from our media response is used to inform the next ad and maybe a mail campaign, or even alert a sales rep or a distributor to an opportunity. A connected media strategy has the potential to improve the business impact of your media investment by 50% or more by deploying some or all of 46 best practices that we've documented. A connected media strategy fundamentally allows marketers to take advantage of what we call the new economies of scale in media. Traditionally, the economies of scale in media came from large dollar buys. Media properties offer discounts or preferential placement if you bought a lot of media. And whilst that still holds true, B2B audiences are much smaller and more targeted, and channels have fragmented to the point where there is not really a big place to concentrate a buy to get that type of a discount. So where are the new economies of scale? The economies of scale come from a number of areas. One is audience definition. We have so much more data that says, why do we have to advertise to 1 million people when we know the 1,000 people who are actually ready to buy our product and willing to buy at a reasonable price? The economies of scale come from creating middleware to connect broad brand value propositions and messages and break them down to individual people at individual stages of the process to make sure that the relevance of that message and the impact of that message is coming through. Economies of scale in media come from getting paid media to work in concert with earned, owned, and shared media. Because for every dollar the average B2B firm spends in paid media, they're spending $2 to $3 on owned channels like websites and email programs, and earned channels like earned social media, thought leadership, content marketing, and sponsorships that have media value and cross-sell attached to them. And so by getting paid, owned, and earned media working together, we help our clients maximize the impact of money they're already spending and any incremental spend they make on paid media.